Do 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 do. Lying Fauci. God, did you guys see that video of that kid singing about Dr. Fauci? That was ultra cringe. Either way, Fauci's in the house today lying right to Rand Paul's face, and I thought I would do this video because I can demonstrably prove that he is a lying sack of trash. So here we have Newsweek, April 28th, 2020. Dr. Fauci backed controversial Wuhan lab with US dollars for risky cornholio research. Think anything involving the cornholio is research and risky, but here we go. Blah, 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 blah. Just last year, the National Institute for Allergy and Infectious Diseases, the organization led by Dr. Fauci, funded scientists at the Wuhan Institute of Virology and other institutions for work on gain-of-function research on bat cornholio. In 2019, with the backing of NIAID, the National Institutes of Health committed $3.7 million over 6 years for research that included some gain-of-function work. The program followed another $3.7 million 5-year project for collecting and studying bat cornholios, which ended in 2019, bringing the total to $7.4 million. Many scientists have criticized gain-of-function research, which involves manipulating viruses in the lab to explore their potential for infecting humans because it creates a risk of starting a pandemic from accidental release. Oh, you don't say. SARS-CoV-2, the virus now causing a global pandemic, is believed to have originated in bats. U.S. intelligence, after originally asserting that the CV had occurred naturally, conceded last month that the pandemic may have originated in a leak from the Wuhan lab. So they thought this back in March 2020, that it was possible that it was a lab leak. At this point, most scientists say it's possible, but not likely, that the pandemic was engineered or manipulated. Interesting. Fauci did not respond to Newsweek's request for comments. National Institute of Health responded with a statement that said, in part, most emerging human viruses come from wildlife, and these represent a significant threat to public health and biosecurity in the U.S. and globally, as demonstrated by the SARS epidemic of 2002-2003, which is the exact virus they put muscles on. They added a spike protein to that SARS virus, and that's what we have now. I'd put my ass on it. Scientific research indicates that there is no evidence that suggests this was created in a laboratory, other than the fact that it came out of nowhere and just went around the world in no time at all, which is not really how these things work. Bats shit on pangolins, it's going to take a while. But if you throw the parts together in a lab, boy oh boy, you'd be surprised how fast these things can move. Like fire. All right. The NIH research consisted of 2 parts. The first part began in 2014 and involved surveillance of bat coronavirus and had a budget of $3.7 million. The program funded Shi Zhengli, a virologist at the Wuhan lab, and other researchers to investigate and catalog bat cornholio in the wild. This part of the project was completed in 2019. Interesting completion date. A second phase of the project, beginning that year, included additional surveillance work, but also gain-of-function research. Gain-of-function is a really nice way of saying bioweapons, for the purpose of understanding how bat cornholio could mutate to attack humans. Oh, interesting that that's the exact thing that they were working on. Interesting. The project was run by EcoHealth Alliance, a nonprofit research group under the direction of President Peter Daszak, an expert on disease ecology. NIH canceled the project just this past Friday, April 24th, 2020. Politico reported. Daszak did not respond for comment. The project proposal states we will use S protein sequence data, infectious clone technology, in vitro and in vivo infection experiments, and analysis of receptor binding to test the hypothesis that percent percent divergence thresholds in S protein sequences predict spillover potential. In layman's terms, which means stupid people, spillover potential refers to the ability of a virus to jump from animals to humans, which requires that the virus be able to attach to receptors in the cells of humans. SARS-CoV-2, for instance, is adept at binding to the ACE2 receptor in human lungs and other organs. According to Richard Ebright, an infectious disease expert at Rutgers University, the project description refers to experiments that would enhance the ability of bat cornholio to infect human cells in laboratory animals using techniques of genetic engineering. In the wake of pandemic, that is a noteworthy detail. Ebright, along with many other scientists, has been a vocal opponent of gain-of-function research because of the risk it presents of creating a pandemic through accidental release from a lab. Dr. Lying Sack of Shit Fauci is renowned for his work on the HIV/AIDS crisis in the 1990s. Born in Brooklyn, he graduated first in his class from Cornell University Medical College in 1966. As head of NIAID since 1984, he has served as an advisor to every U.S. president since Ronald Reagan. Do me a favor, folks, everybody listening, try to remember that it's just as easy to buy a scientist as it is a politician. A decade ago, during a controversy over gain-of-function research on bird flu viruses, Dr. Fauci played an important role in promoting the work. Oh, he's a promoter. He argued. Man, he's really good at promoting and arguing, isn't he? He argued that the research was worth the risk it entailed because it enabled scientists to make preparations, such as investigating possible antiviral medications that could be useful if and when a pandemic occurred. The work in question was a type of gain-of-function research that involved taking wild viruses and passing them through live animals until they mutate into a form that could pose a pandemic threat. This is what I was just talking about. You can't have a bat shit on a pangolin and then a dude make pangolin soup and you get a virus. That's not how it works. They have to take the wild virus and pass them over and over and over through live animals until they mutate. Okay, you don't just get a dookie pangolin and eat it and you get a virus. That's not how this works. Scientists used it to take a virus that was poorly transmitted among humans and make it into one that was highly transmissible, a hallmark of a pandemic virus. This work was done by infecting a series of ferrets, allowing the virus to mutate until a ferret that hadn't been deliberately infected contracted the disease. The work entailed risks that worried even seasoned researchers. More than 200 scientists called for the work to be halted. The problem, they said, is that it increased the likelihood that a pandemic would occur through laboratory accident. And of course, dickhead Fauci defended the work. Determining the molecular Achilles heel of these viruses can now allow scientists to identify novel antiviral drug targets that could be used to prevent infection in those at risk or to better treat those who become infected, wrote Fauci and two co-authors in the Washington Post, December 30th, 2011. Decades of experience tells us that disseminating information gained through biomedical research to legitimate scientists and health officials provides a critical foundation for generating appropriate countermeasures and ultimately protecting the public health. Nevertheless, in 2014, under pressure from the Obama administration, a National Institute of Health instituted a moratorium on the work, suspending 21 studies. 3 years later, though, in December 2017, the NIH ended the moratorium and the second phase of the NIAID project, which included the gain-of-function research, began. The NIH established a framework for determining how the research would go forward. Scientists have to get approval from a panel of experts who would decide whether the risks were justified. The reviews were indeed conducted, but in secret, for which the NIH has drawn criticism. In early 2019, after a reporter for Science magazine discovered that NIH had approved 2 influenza research projects that used gain-of-function methods, scientists who opposed this kind of research excoriated the NIH in an editorial in the Washington Post. "We have serious doubts about whether these experiments should be conducted at all," wrote Tom Inglesby of Johns Hopkins University and Mark Lipsitch of Harvard. With deliberations kept behind closed doors, none of us will have the opportunity to understand how the government arrived at these decisions or to judge the rigor and integrity of that process. That should be absolutely frightening to people. With deliberations kept behind closed doors, none of us will have the opportunity to understand how the government arrived at these decisions or to judge the rigor and integrity of that process. If you're going to do something bad, you're going to want to do it behind closed doors, folks. Here's a correction. The headline of this story has been corrected to reflect that the Wuhan lab received only a part of the millions of US dollars allocated for V research. Okay, now let's take a look at the video.
Think about that for a moment. The SARS virus had a 15% mortality. We're fighting a pandemic that has about a 1% mortality. Can you imagine if a SARS virus that's been juiced up and had viral proteins added to it, to the spike protein, if that were released accidentally? Dr. Fauci, do you still support funding of the NIH funding of the lab in Wuhan?
Senator Paul, with all due respect, you are entirely and completely incorrect that the NIH has not ever and does not now fund gain-of-function research in the Wuhan Institute of Virology.
Do they fund Dr. Barrick?
We do not fund.
Do you fund Dr. Barrick's gain-of-function research?
Dr. Barrett does not doing gain-of-function research, and if it is, it's according to the guidelines, and it is being conducted in North Carolina, not in China.
You don't think inserting a bat virus spike protein that he got from the Wuhan Institute into the SARS virus is gain-of-function?
That is
not. You would
not
be in the minority because at least 200 scientists have signed a statement from the Cambridge Working Group saying that it is gain-of-function.
Well, it is not. And if you look at the grant and you look at the progress reports, it is not gain-of-function, despite the fact that people tweet that.
So do you still support sending money to the Wuhan Virology Institute?
We do not send money now to the Wuhan Virology Institute.
Do you support sending money? We did, under your tutelage. We were sending it through EcoHealth. It was a sub-agency and a sub-grant. Do you support the money from NIH that was going to the Wuhan Institute?
Let me explain to you why that was done. The SARS-CoV-1 originated in bats in China. It would have been irresponsible of us if we did not investigate the bat viruses and the serology to see who might have been infected. Or
perhaps it would be irresponsible to send it to the China.
I'll tell you, something about that creepy little man does not sit right with not only me, but millions of others. He says some things that are so completely ass backwards that I don't even think he believes it. He's so deep into this, and now that the truth's finally coming out, I think you're going to watch some major happenings surrounding Fauci.